Every morning before the sun even begins to rise, Maria wakes up in her small, cramped apartment, the alarm buzzing loudly beside her. She stretches and rubs her tired eyes, knowing she has a long day ahead. Most people would never imagine that she walks 20 miles to her job every single day. But for Maria, it is just part of her life, part of her responsibility, and part of her determination to survive. She does not complain, even though the journey is exhausting and her feet are often blistered from the previous days. The streets are quiet as she steps outside, the cold morning air biting at her cheeks. The dim glow of streetlights illuminates her path as she starts walking, one foot in front of the other, her backpack heavy with the few things she carries, lunch packed in a small container, her water bottle swinging with each step. She keeps her head down and her pace steady, passing empty shops and silent homes. She waves at the occasional early riser or street vendor, but mostly she walks in silence. The sound of her shoes on the pavement is the only companion she allows herself. The first few miles are always the hardest. Her legs ache from the very beginning. Her back protests under the weight of her bag. But she pushes through, thinking of the work she must reach, the bills that must be paid, and the family she supports. Maria's life has never been easy. She grew up learning that hard work is the only way to survive. And even though people often take her dedication for granted, she has never considered quitting or looking for shortcuts. She knows the value of perseverance. She knows that this walk, long and painful as it is, allows her to provide for her younger brother, who relies on her for food, clothing, and guidance. She thinks of the smiles on his face when he eats a warm meal or the pride in his eyes when he talks about school, and that gives her the strength to keep going. Along the way, Maria passes through parts of the city that most people avoid, narrow alleys and busy intersections. She has learned the safest paths, the quietest shortcuts, and the roads where she can rest for a few minutes without worry. She nods at familiar faces she sees regularly. A man sweeping his storefront, an elderly woman walking her dog, or children heading to school. Sometimes they ask why she walks so far, and Maria only smiles quietly, not explaining the full truth, because it is not about recognition. It is about responsibility, about duty, and about love. Every mile brings a new challenge, a loose paving stone, a car speeding too fast, or a sudden drizzle that soaks her clothes. Yet she continues, adjusting her pace, holding her bag tightly, and keeping her focus on the road ahead. Maria's mind drifts as she walks, replaying moments of her life that brought her here. She remembers her mother, who worked 2 jobs and still struggled to make ends meet. She remembers the day she had to take responsibility for her younger brother when her mother fell ill, the weight of adulthood pressing on her shoulders at such a young age. Those memories are heavy, but they're also motivating, reminding her why she cannot give up. She thinks about the long hours at her workplace, the repetitive tasks, the demanding bosses, but also the satisfaction of earning her own money, of knowing that she is making a difference in her little world. As the hours pass, the streets begin to come alive, the sun rises higher, and the city starts bustling with life. Yet Maria remains focused, carefully navigating traffic, avoiding obstacles, and maintaining her rhythm. She takes short breaks when needed, leaning against a wall or sitting on a bench, feeling the ache in her legs, the burning in her muscles, and the strain in her back, but she never lets it slow her completely. She knows that if she stops for too long, the journey will feel endless, and the workday will begin with exhaustion. She sips water, wipes the sweat from her forehead, and continues, each step a testament to her determination. Despite the physical pain, there is a sense of pride in her journey. No one can take away the fact that she is capable, that she endures what others cannot, and that her dedication is unwavering. Maria walks not just for herself, but for her family, for her responsibilities, and for the belief that hard work and perseverance can change her life. Every mile she covers is a silent victory. Every step a small but meaningful achievement, and though she looks ordinary to anyone passing by, inside, she carries extraordinary strength, resilience, and hope. By the time she reaches the halfway mark, her body is tired, but her spirit is strong, and she knows that she will continue, because giving up is never an option. Her journey is a story of courage, sacrifice, and unspoken determination, and it is only just beginning. The morning sun had fully risen by the time Maria reached the outskirts of the city, her legs still aching from the first 10 miles. But she kept moving, her determination stronger than the fatigue. She knew the journey ahead would not get any easier. Yet she welcomed the challenge as if it were a part of her daily ritual. Today felt different, though she could not immediately say why. The streets seemed quieter, the air fresher, as if the world itself was holding its breath to witness her. Resolve, she adjusted the strap of her backpack, feeling the familiar tug on her shoulders, and took a deep breath, letting the cool air fill her lungs. Every step forward with a mixture of pain and purpose. As she walked, Maria noticed small things that she usually ignored. A bird struggling to take flight, a leaf tumbling across the pavement, a stray dog watching her curiously from the corner of an empty street. These small moments reminded her that life continued around her. Even when she was focused entirely on her own struggles, she found comfort in the rhythm of her steps, the way her shoes tapped against the road, the steady hum of distant traffic, and the occasional laughter of children playing in backyards. Each sound, each sight was a reminder that the world kept moving, and she would not let herself fall behind. People began to appear more frequently now. Commuters rushing to offices, street vendors setting up small stalls, a group of school children chatting and skipping along the sidewalks. Some glanced at her curiously, some smiled politely. But few understood the true story behind her long walk. Most assumed she was exercising or perhaps enjoying a morning stroll. Maria kept her head down, offering only polite nods, not revealing the depth of her struggle. She had learned long ago that appearances often hid truths that were too heavy to share casually. About halfway through her journey, Maria reached a small park, a place she sometimes used to rest briefly. Today she paused beneath a large oak tree, leaning against its trunk, letting her eyes wander over the dew-covered grass. She took a small sip of water and unpacked a granola bar, eating slowly, savoring each bite as if it were a reward. Even small comforts mattered when she had already walked so far. A kind, elderly man passed by and waved at her. She returned the gesture with a tired smile, appreciating the human connection even in passing. These little interactions gave her a sense of normalcy in a life that was often defined by struggle. As she resumed walking, Maria's mind drifted to her workplace, a small family-run bakery that depended on her presence every morning. She thought of the ovens waiting to be lit, the bread that needed kneading, the pastries that demanded careful attention. She loved her job, not for the money, but for the pride it gave her, the knowledge that her effort contributed to something tangible, something that brought joy to others. And yet she also knew that without her long walk, without the commitment to reach the bakery every day, her family would struggle even more. Somewhere along the main road, a police officer noticed her, sitting in his patrol car and watching her steady pace. He had seen people walk to work before, but 20 miles? That seemed almost impossible. Curiosity sparked in his mind. He observed her carefully, noting the determination in her eyes, the strength in her stride, and the weight of her backpack. He wondered why anyone would choose to endure so much effort day after day. Something inside him told him there was a story worth discovering. Maria continued, unaware that she was being observed, her focus entirely on the road ahead. She adjusted her pace slightly to avoid a puddle left from last night's rain, her shoes squelching with each careful step. The wind blew softly against her face, carrying the scent of freshly baked bread from a nearby bakery. She imagined herself inside soon, the warmth, the smell, and the comfort awaiting her at the end of the journey. The thought gave her renewed energy, and she quickened her pace slightly, determined to reach her destination before the workday truly began. By the time she crossed into the busier streets leading to her workplace, Maria's body ached, yet her spirit remained unbroken. She had survived the first part of her journey, and the second half, though difficult, was a familiar challenge she had conquered countless times before. The city had started to awaken fully now. people hurrying to their destinations, the sound of engines and chatter filling the air. Yet Maria walked calmly, almost like a figure moving through the chaos with purpose. Little did she know that today, her journey would catch someone's attention in a way it never had before. Officer Daniels had been patrolling this part of the city for years, but that morning, something unusual caught his eye. A woman walking steadily along the road, her pace strong despite the obvious distance she had already covered. He watched from his car for a few moments, curiosity prickling at him. 20 miles on foot every single day? It seemed impossible. Yet there she was, carrying herself with quiet determination, her steps unwavering, her backpack heavy, yet balanced perfectly on her shoulders. He noticed the way she kept her head slightly bowed, focused on each step, never looking around, as if the world existed only in front of her, not around her. Something about her drew his attention, and he felt compelled to follow discreetly. As he drove slowly behind her, keeping a careful distance, he observed her interactions with the small parts of the city she passed. She nodded politely to a shopkeeper setting up his morning stall. She gave a small smile to a young boy riding his bicycle. Yet she never lingered, never slowed unnecessarily. Her journey was purposeful, disciplined, and strangely inspiring. Officer Daniels found himself wondering what could drive someone to endure so much. He had seen people push themselves before, but nothing like this. It was as if her walk was not just a routine, but a statement of will, a silent testament to perseverance. Maria, completely unaware of being followed, continued her journey, navigating through a narrow alley where a stray cat darted across her path. She adjusted her bag, the straps digging into her shoulders, and took a steadying breath, her mind focused not on the distance, but on the small victories along the way. A clean sidewalk, a friendly smile, the rising sun painting the buildings in soft orange light. These were the things that kept her moving. They reminded her that despite the struggle, the world still held beauty and small moments of joy. Officer Daniels noticed something else that made him even more curious. The way Maria paused occasionally, not out of exhaustion, but seemingly to perform small tasks along the route. She carefully arranged something on a windowsill, perhaps watering a tiny plant. She bent to help an elderly woman pick up fallen groceries. She gave a reassuring nod to a child who had dropped a notebook in the street. Each small act of kindness told him that this woman's life was not only about struggle, but about responsibility and care. Her purpose went beyond reaching her workplace. It was woven into every interaction, every step, every decision along the road. As they moved through a busier part of the city, Officer Daniels saw her approach a small bridge, her pace slowing slightly. Not from fatigue, but from caution, she carefully navigated the uneven pavement, keeping her balance, her focus absolute. He realized that the journey was not just physical, but mental as well. Every step required concentration, planning, and endurance, and yet she carried herself with grace, her face calm, almost serene. It was as if the long walk had become a rhythm, a meditation, and a habit she could not break. The cop couldn't help but admire her silently, feeling a mix of astonishment and respect. He had followed countless people for curiosity, for work, for investigation, but none had moved him like this. None had made him consider the silent struggles people endure every day without recognition. He realized that this woman's story, her sacrifice, and her strength were hidden in plain sight, unnoticed by the city around her, yet so powerful and inspiring. By the time Maria reached the halfway mark, Officer Daniels had made up his mind. He needed to understand her story, not to intervene, but to witness the reason behind such relentless determination. He continued to follow, keeping a careful distance, letting her movements guide him. He watched her cross streets with precision, greet neighbors with a soft smile, and move forward despite the physical toll. And he began to feel that the answer to the mystery of her journey would change the way he saw his own life. For Maria, the world remained the same, her walk uninterrupted by the presence of anyone watching. Every step forward was driven by invisible threads of duty, love, and survival. She did not know that someone was noticing her courage, that her ordinary actions were extraordinary in someone else's eyes, and that this day, like no other, would mark the beginning of a story that others would remember and share. The morning had fully warmed into day, yet Maria's journey continued, each step steady, deliberate, and purposeful. Officer Daniel stayed in his car, careful not to alert her to his presence. The curiosity that had started as casual observation now burned into a quiet determination to understand. There was something in the way she moved, a silent strength, a hidden story that demanded attention. He adjusted his mirror, keeping her in sight as she navigated the twists and turns of streets he thought he knew well. He noticed the faint scuff marks on her shoes, the slight reddening of her ankles from long hours of walking, and the small beads of sweat forming on her forehead. Yet she did not falter. She did not complain. She simply moved forward, and it was impossible not to admire her. As she passed through a narrow residential lane, Officer Daniels noticed her slowing down to look into a small yard. She knelt briefly by a patch of flowers, brushing dirt from the soil with careful fingers, and watered them from a small bottle she carried. He realized that this was not a casual walk for exercise, nor was it a route chosen lightly. She tended to life along the way, quietly giving attention to things others might overlook. Each pause, each small act told him there was a deeper purpose to her routine, something personal, something meaningful, and he leaned forward in his seat, trying to see more without drawing her notice. Further along, she stopped to help an elderly man who had dropped a bundle of newspapers, bending gracefully, picking each one up and handing them back with a soft smile. The man thanked her, and she nodded, already moving again before he could offer more words of gratitude. Daniels felt a growing respect. He had watched people act kindly before, but the way she gave attention, not for recognition, but simply because it was right, struck him deeply. It was as if her entire walk was a mission, a test of patience, endurance, and heart, each mile carrying a lesson in humility and care. Maria's backpack swayed slightly as she continued, containing only the essentials she needed for her day: a small lunch, a water bottle, a change of clothes tucked carefully inside. But Daniels noticed something else. There were small envelopes tucked in her bag, worn but neat, and he wondered about their purpose. A curiosity mingled with admiration kept him following. Every interaction she had, every subtle act of responsibility or care, seemed connected to something bigger, something unseen. He felt a sense of anticipation, the feeling that soon the reason behind her grueling routine would reveal itself. She crossed a busy intersection with careful precision, her eyes scanning the traffic, her pace unbroken despite the chaos around her. The city was waking now. Honking horns, vendors shouting, bicycles weaving between pedestrians, yet she remained calm, controlled, almost meditative. Daniels noticed the slight frown of concentration on her face, the way she adjusted the weight of her bag without losing balance. Every movement precise, rehearsed, as if she had been walking these streets her entire life. And perhaps, in a way, she had, every morning shaping her, molding her endurance and patience. At a small corner shop, she paused briefly to purchase a loaf of bread, offering a few coins to the shopkeeper and exchanging a soft-spoken greeting. Daniels watched her hands tremble slightly as she adjusted the bag afterward, not from weakness, but from the weight of responsibility she carried silently. It struck him that she was not simply walking for herself. She was walking for others, for people who depended on her care, for obligations unseen to strangers. Each step an act of love and survival intertwined. As Maria moved onward, Daniels realized that he was no longer merely an observer. He was a witness to an extraordinary story unfolding in plain sight, one that most people would walk past without noticing. He felt a sense of honor and humility, knowing that her quiet courage was something rare, something powerful, and he silently vowed to understand her journey, to see beyond the surface and uncover the reason that made her endure 20 miles every day. It was a story of strength, resilience, and heart, waiting to be revealed to the world, and he would be there when it finally did. Maria had crossed the busy streets and was now moving into a quieter part of the city. Streets lined with small houses, a few stray cats wandering between gardens, and the soft hum of early morning life. Officer Daniel stayed back, careful not to draw attention. Yet his curiosity burned stronger than ever. He noticed how Maria paused occasionally, not for herself, but to adjust small things along the way. A fallen branch moved aside, a trash bag tied securely to prevent it from spilling. Small gestures most people would never notice, and he realized that her journey was more than endurance. It was responsibility, it was care, it was thoughtfulness woven into every step. As she walked past an old community center, Daniel saw her glance inside, her eyes softening as she noticed a small group of children playing. One of them tripped and scraped a knee. Maria bent down immediately, gently examining the child's injury, brushing off the dirt, and giving him a reassuring smile. She offered words of comfort, her voice soft, calm, and caring, and then continued on her way. Daniels felt a warmth in his chest he had not expected. This was no ordinary walk, no ordinary struggle. Each step was part of a larger story, a story that touched lives quietly and without recognition. He leaned forward, wanting to know more, needing to understand the full picture. Further along, Maria stopped at a small bench near a fountain, taking a brief moment to rest, her hands running along the straps of her bag, her face reflecting the strain of the miles already covered. Daniels watched her closely, noticing the subtle signs of sacrifice, the worn shoes, the tired posture, the careful packing of her lunch to last the day, but also noticing something else, a small photograph sticking out of her bag. A picture of a young boy with a bright smile, his eyes filled with admiration. She touched it lightly before tucking it away, a private moment of love that seemed to fuel her journey. Danielle's heart raced with anticipation. He began to understand that her walk was not just for herself. It was for someone she cared deeply about, someone who depended on her. As she resumed walking, Maria approached a narrow alley where a stray dog followed her quietly. Wagging its tail, she stopped and offered the dog a small piece of bread from her bag, watching as it devoured it gratefully. Daniels noticed how naturally she interacted with the world around her, how much thought went into each action. No moment wasted, no kindness ignored. He realized that the 20 miles were more than a physical journey. They were an expression of her character, her values, her love for life and the people in it. Each step was intentional, meaningful, and full of silent lessons. When she reached a small corner, Maria paused to help an elderly woman carry a basket of groceries. Bending carefully, steadying the weight, and ensuring nothing fell, the woman thanked her, and Maria nodded. Already moving forward without looking back, Daniels was struck by the realization that her entire walk was full of these small acts, each unnoticed by most, yet profoundly important. He began to feel that the reason for her daily journey might be hidden in these very actions, that the people she quietly helped and cared for were part of the secret driving force behind her routine. Maria's pace never faltered. Even as the sun rose higher and the streets became busier, she navigated through traffic, moved past honking cars and bustling vendors, her focus absolute, her resolve unwavering. Daniels followed, mesmerized by the blend of endurance, kindness, and hidden purpose. Each clue she left along the way built a picture of a life full of responsibility and love, a life where every step mattered, not just for herself, but for others. He realized that soon he would discover the reason, the moment that would reveal the heart behind the journey. By the time she neared the halfway mark of her 20-mile walk, Daniels felt a mixture of admiration and anticipation. Her quiet courage had captured him completely. He knew that this story was extraordinary, that it deserved to be seen, and that the revelation of her purpose would be unforgettable. Maria continued walking, unaware of the eyes following her, each step a testament to love, sacrifice, and unspoken resilience. The city around her moved in its usual chaos, but she moved through it with grace and intent, carrying a story that was waiting to be discovered, a story that would touch hearts, change perspectives, and inspire everyone who heard it. By mid-morning, Maria had finally entered the last stretch of her journey, the familiar streets of her neighborhood coming into view. Her legs burned with fatigue, her feet ached, yet she moved with the same steady determination that had carried her through 20 miles every day. Officer Daniels had followed quietly, keeping a safe distance. But now he realized that the moment he had been waiting for was near. Something in her movements, the way she held her bag, the small pauses she took, all pointed to the fact that the truth behind her relentless walk was about to be revealed. As she turned into a small, quiet street, Maria slowed slightly, approaching a modest house with a worn but tidy garden. She reached into her bag and carefully pulled out the small envelopes Daniels had glimpsed before, opening one gently and placing its contents inside the mailbox. He realized that she delivered something every day, a daily gesture that was clearly important. Yet the significance of these deliveries was still hidden, curiosity burning stronger than ever. He continued following, determined to see where this final part of her walk would lead. Maria paused at the front door, kneeling to adjust the bicycle standing nearby, and then entered the house with careful steps. Daniels watched from his car, noticing the slight tremble of exhaustion in her movements. Yet a softness radiated from her presence, as if this place, this home, was the reason behind every painful mile she endured. He parked a little further away, wanting to see without intruding, and waited, his mind racing with guesses. But none of them could have prepared him for the truth he was about to witness. Inside the modest home, Maria was greeted by the bright smile of a young boy, his eyes lighting up when he saw her. She set down her bag and knelt to hug him, the warmth between them unmistakable. Danielle's heart ached at the sight, realizing that this boy was the reason for every mile, every blister, every aching muscle. Maria had walked 20 miles not for herself, not for recognition, but to care for him, to ensure he had food, safety, and love. The sacrifices she had made silently every day were for this small life that depended entirely on her. She moved quietly through the house, preparing a simple meal, checking that the boy had everything he needed, her face soft with care, yet tired from the long walk. Daniels noticed a photo on the wall, a family picture with Maria and the boy's father. Now absent, a reality that added weight to her journey. He realized that her strength was not just physical, but emotional, a determination born from love and responsibility that most people could never understand. She was a quiet hero, enduring hardships that would break others, all for the well-being of the child she cared for. Stepping outside again briefly, Maria checked the small mailbox, ensuring the envelopes she delivered earlier were in place, each one likely containing something vital. Daniels understood now that her walk was both practical and symbolic, a bridge between effort and love, responsibility and care. The 20 miles represented more than distance. They represented commitment, sacrifice, and devotion. He felt a mix of awe and humility, knowing that her journey had gone unnoticed by most, yet it was extraordinary, a lesson in endurance and selflessness. As Maria finally rested for a moment on the porch, brushing the sweat from her forehead and adjusting her worn shoes, Daniels realized he had witnessed something remarkable, a story that would inspire anyone who heard it. He felt compelled to honor her courage, to ensure that her daily struggle was not overlooked, and to acknowledge the quiet heroism in her actions. Every small step she had taken that morning, and every morning before, carried a profound message about love, resilience, and determination. He knew this was a story he would carry with him forever. Maria entered the house again, the boy running to greet her, and Daniel sat back in his car, letting the moment sink in. The secret behind her 20-mile walk had been revealed, a heartwarming reason that spoke of courage, sacrifice, and an unbreakable bond. He felt gratitude for having witnessed it, knowing that ordinary lives often hold extraordinary stories, and that sometimes the smallest gestures of love demand the greatest endurance. Maria's journey was not just a walk. It was a testament to the power of love and the human spirit. Word of Maria's daily 20-mile walk spread slowly at first, whispered among neighbors who had begun noticing her dedication. But once Officer Daniels shared his observations with a local community center, the story began to gain attention. People were astonished by the lengths she went to care for the young boy she raised alone. It wasn't just the physical challenge that amazed them, but the quiet love and selflessness behind every step. Those who had passed her on the streets before now looked at her with admiration, realizing that they had underestimated the strength and courage of someone they had often overlooked. The small neighborhood buzzed with curiosity and respect. Some of the shopkeepers who saw her every morning began offering small gestures of support. A free bottle of water here, a piece of fruit there. Children waved at her as she passed, not fully understanding the sacrifice, but sensing her kindness and determination. Maria, oblivious to the growing recognition, continued her walks with the same unwavering focus. Her mission unchanged, yet the world around her was beginning to notice the quiet heroism that had been hiding in plain sight. Officer Daniels, moved by the story, decided to visit Maria's home personally. Offering a gentle smile and kind words, he expressed his admiration for her courage, explaining that her journey had inspired many people who had heard about it. Maria, humble as always, shrugged softly, insisting that she was only doing what she had to do, that the boy's well-being came first. Yet Daniels could see the pride in her eyes, a quiet glow that spoke louder than any words could. The realization that her perseverance had touched others seemed to empower her even more. Local media picked up the story after Daniels spoke with a journalist who wanted to highlight acts of real-life heroism. Soon videos and articles appeared online, showing the young woman walking tirelessly, helping others along the way, and revealing the reason behind her daily trek. Comments flooded in, expressing awe, respect, and inspiration. People from other cities began sharing their own small stories of sacrifice, of determination, and of love. Maria became a symbol, a reminder that ordinary people could do extraordinary things when driven by purpose and heart. Back in the neighborhood, her co-workers at the bakery began noticing changes too. Small gestures to support her, a bottle of water placed on the counter before she arrived, a kind word about her courage, even a few people offering to share rides when the weather was harsh. Yet Maria remained humble, never asking for help unnecessarily, simply accepting it with gratitude. Each act of kindness she received reflected the ripple effect of her own generosity and commitment. The respect of the community and the newfound support only strengthened the invisible bond between her and the people around her. As the story continued to spread, Officer Daniels often found himself reflecting on the lessons Maria had unintentionally taught him. Endurance was more than physical, courage was more than action, and love was often quiet, hidden, yet profoundly powerful. He saw in her example the reminder that heroism doesn't always require recognition. Sometimes it exists simply in the persistence to do the right thing, in the willingness to care when no one is watching, and in the determination to walk 20 miles every day just to make life a little better for someone else. By the end of the week, a small group of volunteers from the community organized a simple initiative to support Maria, collecting donations, preparing small care packages for her daily journey, and leaving notes of encouragement. Maria, arriving one morning for a long walk, noticed the gifts quietly placed near her starting point. She paused, touched by the gesture, but without fanfare, she nodded, acknowledging the support, and continued walking, knowing that the purpose of her journey remained the same, yet feeling a little lighter, a little more seen, and a little more appreciated. Maria's story had become more than a tale of endurance. It had transformed into a source of inspiration, a reminder to the world that determination, kindness, and love could create ripples far beyond what one person might imagine. The cop who had followed her now walked beside her story in spirit, knowing that witnessing her journey had changed his perspective on life, community, and human resilience. And in the quiet streets where she continued her long walk, Maria remained a living example that even in ordinary lives, extraordinary courage could shine brightly. The morning sun cast a golden glow over the quiet streets as Maria began her final stretch of the day's journey. Her legs heavy, her feet sore, yet her spirit unbroken. The support from neighbors, co-workers, and the small community of volunteers had added a lightness to her heart she had never expected. Yet she moved with the same quiet focus, knowing that her mission was far from over. The boy she cared for still needed her. The daily tasks still awaited, and the journey itself remained a symbol of love, resilience, and determination. Officer Daniels had parked his car a few blocks away. Watching from a distance as Maria made her way through the familiar paths, he could see the subtle changes in her demeanor, a slight lift in her step, a warmth in her eyes, a quiet pride that radiated from someone who had finally been seen, recognized, and supported. Yet she carried herself with humility, her walk not altered by recognition, her purpose unchanged. The story that had touched so many hearts now reflected back at her in gestures of care, and she accepted them with quiet gratitude. As she approached the small house where the young boy waited, she slowed her pace, the familiar sight of the home filling her with a sense of relief and accomplishment. She opened the door and was immediately greeted by his joyful laughter, his small arms reaching up to hug her. And in that moment, all the pain, the sweat, and the blisters from the 20-mile walk melted away. The purpose behind her journey crystallized in the warmth of a single embrace. Daniels watched silently, realizing that the simple acts of love often required the greatest courage. Inside the house, Maria prepared a small meal, checking that the boy had everything he needed for the day. Her hands moved quickly yet gently, every motion filled with care and intent. She glanced at the small envelopes she had delivered earlier, knowing that each step of the journey, was part of a bigger picture, a silent effort that ensured life continued smoothly for someone she loved. Daniels could feel the weight of her responsibility, the extraordinary effort hidden in ordinary acts. And he knew this was a story the world needed to hear, a story that would inspire generations. When Maria stepped outside again briefly, she noticed the small gifts left by the volunteers, water bottles, snacks, notes of encouragement. She paused, reading a note aloud quietly. "Your courage inspires us all," and a gentle smile touched her lips. She nodded softly, a sense of quiet fulfillment washing over her. The recognition, though not sought, had arrived, and yet it did not change her. It did not define her. Her journey was still hers, a testament to love, duty, and resilience. She adjusted her bag and started walking again, knowing that tomorrow would bring another 20 miles, another opportunity to care, and another chance to lead by example. The community began sharing videos and stories of Maria online. The world marveled at her determination, her kindness, and her selflessness. She became a symbol of what ordinary people could achieve with love and perseverance. Parents shared the story with their children. Teachers spoke about her courage in schools, and Officer Daniels often reflected on how witnessing her daily routine had changed his perspective on life, duty, and humanity. Her story was no longer just her own, it belonged to everyone who needed proof that ordinary people could perform extraordinary acts. By the end of the day, Maria returned home, exhausted yet content, the boy asleep with a peaceful smile, the small home filled with warmth and quiet satisfaction. She sat for a moment on the porch, watching the sun dip toward the horizon, her heart full, knowing that every mile she had walked, every ounce of energy she had spent, had mattered. The city around her moved in its usual rhythm, but her journey stood out, a reminder that courage is quiet, love is patient, and ordinary lives can hold extraordinary stories. As Officer Daniels drove away that evening, he glanced back at Maria's house, feeling gratitude and awe. He knew he had witnessed something remarkable, a story of sacrifice, endurance, and heart, one that would stay with him forever, and he hoped the world would see it too. Maria had not just walked 20 miles to work, she had walked into history, leaving behind an invisible trail of inspiration, a legacy of courage, and a lesson that ordinary acts, when driven by love and purpose, can change lives forever.